Welcome back to Let's Create with Alex Blake. And today we have a guest on the pod. I am so excited to get to introduce you guys to my new friend, Lisa. Guys, this is Lisa Rowland. Say hey.
Hi, guys.
Lisa is from Nashville, Tennessee. She lives downtown Nashville, which is super cool. So I want to hear more about that. But also it's really cool because she used to be an architecture photographer, which is cool, or like in architecture. I don't know. We're going to hear all the things. But now she's a full-time wedding photographer. She's super talented. Lisa, I love your style because I feel like it's very like clean, but at the same time, storytelling and editorial. So I think that's like such a beautiful blend where it's not the typical trendy kind of thing. Like you have a very unique style, but yet it's very on trend at the same time. So I'm excited to kind of chat about that. But first, I want to hear all about your life. So just begin. Tell us everything from the day you were born. No, I'm just kidding.
I will. I'm long-winded.
Totally kidding. Just tell me like your photography story, your story in life, creativity, and what brought you to where you are now.
Yeah, I just want to first start by saying thank you so much for having me. That introduction was so sweet and just so kind. But yeah, I originally had gotten started in photography back in college. So you're pretty much right on the money. I was studying architecture and design. I was kind of looking into going into architecture and just designing, mostly exterior, not really interior and things like that.
So cool though. I could never.
Oh, me neither. Look, and I learned that throughout the years. It was a very long program. I went to the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. And while I was studying, a lot of the projects kind of involved us having to take lots of photos and things like that. And I'd already really loved photography. So I was just like, let me just kind of like dive into this a little bit more.
Just feel it out.
Exactly. So I dove head first. I started, I didn't even really know what kind of photography I wanted to do. I just wanted to do it all. I really loved like makeup and editorials and things like that. So I had started cold emailing everybody. The first being a modeling agency in Knoxville, worked with them a little bit. Then I emailed like an architect, and also lots of people ghosted me, by the way. So I totally understand ghosting, but it was like the agency, the architectural photographer who did mostly real estate. I did eventually a wedding photographer. I did studio photographers, and I just wanted to talk to literally anybody who would listen to me and talk to me about like what I'm passionate about. And eventually,
were you just like emailing them and asking them to meet up?
Yes.
Cool.
And I feel like that's a little bit more old school because a lot of people DM'd. I didn't have a photography account at the time. I was way too afraid to start one. I wasn't super into Instagram at the time either. But yeah, I just found everybody's email and I cold emailed them. So a lot of the people that I had talked to were in their 40s and 50s and have been doing this for so long too. But I talked to a lot of those people, and eventually I found a wedding photographer that I really loved, Red Boat Photography. I hope she's doing well. And I did a wedding with her. I actually paid her to be my mentor for a little bit. And I used to have one specific take on weddings. I thought they were like way too stressful, but I always wanted to give everything a shot. And then after I did that wedding, I was like, I know exactly what I want to do. And it is literally so cool. This. Yeah. So while I was in school, I started doing seniors and weddings, a little bit of sports photography as well for UT.
You have been like around the block, like literally.
I don't even know why. Honestly, it has just been a whirlwind, but that was only for a hot second. And then eventually I graduated from UT and I moved to Nashville to pursue architecture, got a job at a firm locally, loved the firm. Can't say anything better than that. But I realized it wasn't for me. And then mid 2023, late 2023, I ended up quitting, went full time, and I just had my first full season last year in
Let's
2024. So it's been
go.
amazing. It's
That's
been hard.
awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is amazing. It is also
It's
hard.
very hard.
So
Yeah.
that's kind of like what I really want to focus on today. Like we can talk about literally whatever we want, but I really want to focus on you transitioning from this like corporate job that feels safe into
hmm
an entrepreneurial photography business started from the ground up unsafe. So we can talk
hmm
more about that specific question and word safe to not safe, later. But like, I
Man.
really do want to focus on that. Before we get to that though, tell me a little bit about like, you have done all of these different niches, which I think is so cool. Like, I think it was last episode or maybe 2 episodes ago, but I was literally talking about that. Like, when you have experience in all these different niches as a beginner photographer, it sets you up so well for when you do choose what lane you want to walk down. How do you feel like maybe all those different niches and your experiences in those have set you up for weddings and your style in weddings?
Gosh, it's so hard to speak on the style because I feel like that had just kind of evolved over the years. It was so, so hard to find.
Sure.
But I really think a lot of the different avenues and niches that I have taken really helped me with like the technical aspect of it.
Cool.
Because when it was so funny because I remember going to my first little like fashion show and I was in the photography pit and I was the only girl in my 20s. Everybody else was like 50-year-old men
Yep.
with these huge, huge lenses and big gear and the lights and everything. And I had just had like my T6i and
Yes.
I'm shooting with my Amazon lens. And that
My
one really,
Amazon
my
list.
Amazon lens, which is a lens that I recommend to lots of people, by the
Okay.
way. I,
Explain what are you talking about?
okay, it was because originally I had my kit lens
Yeah.
and I was just like, I want more bokeh in the background. And there was this lens, I think it still runs for like $150 on Amazon, which I don't, if you're going to start investing in gear, that's like a whole other thing that I can talk about. Like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend doing it off of Amazon, but for something cheap, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, it was like, it was super cheap. It's a 50 millimeter, I
Yes.
think f1.2. I'm not
The
really
nifty
sure. The
50.
Nifty 50 is what
Hmm.
I built my whole dream off of
Totally.
actually
No,
for
I
many
I did
years.
too. I did too. So I think it's a great
hmm
place to start. I totally agree with that.
Oh my gosh, I loved it.
Your
But I
Amazon lens.
remember exactly I had just told a friend she was actually a high school friend, and she was just like, can you tell me how you got it started? Like, I want to know the gear and everything like that. And that was the lens that I had recommended to her because she was panicking and she was just like, everything's like thousands and
Yeah.
thousands of dollars. I'm like, you don't need to invest that quite yet.
Yeah. I
Um,
love that.
but yeah, it was so great just because the people in, let's say, the fashion show, they were just like, hey, it's kind of dark. You're gonna need a flash. Here's how you use a flash,
Cool.
which was really cool to learn that immediately. And then again, yeah, like I've taken different aspects, especially from a technical sense, from all the other niches,
Yeah.
and then just kind of like threw that at weddings, just because in weddings it's different lighting conditions, different
Hmm.
situations that you just never know what you have to be prepared for.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think weddings are interesting because they're this like blend of portrait photography,
hmm
clearly, but also with weddings, it's events too. It's
Yeah.
like it is an event. And
Yeah.
so you kind of have to be ready for anything. So it is cool that like all those different niches, you kind of like brought things into the wedding world with
hmm
you. That's cool.
hmm
Also, yeah, nifty 50 for sure. If anyone is like beginning their journey and needs to like, upgrade from their kit lens, go with the
hmm
50. Go with the
And
50.
you'll use that 50 for years.
Yes,
At least
100%.
two. At
Yeah,
least two whenever you can
100%. And
save
it's
up a
like
little bit more.
$150. I think the
Yeah.
Sony one is around there too. I think the Sony one might be 200. I know you were talking about the Canon one, but yeah. And I'm sure that Nikon, and all the other things too
Oh
have a
yeah.
similar nifty 50. But
Do you shoot
anyway,
Sony?
I do.
Amazing.
Yes, I do. But I used to shoot Canon. So when I had I've actually had a nifty 50 on both Sony and Canon. But yeah, but I started on Canon. So I
Amazing.
know. Anyway, okay, going back to like your wedding style and stuff like that. Do you feel like having a background in architecture and design that you can say no to this. I don't even know.
Okay.
But do you feel like it
Yeah.
trained your eye for what you want in your wedding style? Like, I know you said your style evolved over years, but tell us
hmm
a little bit about that.
I would think that's something that I didn't focus on
Yeah.
initially because at first, see now I'm like gonna walk it back a little bit, but at first when I was living before Nashville, I lived in Knoxville, and when I had originally started was back around COVID times. I was in Knoxville in the mountains, and all of my clientele then really wanted to shoot outdoors, and I love the
Mhm.
outdoors. I hiked the same hike 50 million times. So I really feel like it didn't have an influence originally, but
Yeah.
ever since I moved to Nashville, it's just been such a different market, especially with the trends that are
Sure.
happening now. Um, I kind of think that now that I'm kind of thinking about it, I do think that it really influenced like how my workflow, if that kind of makes sense.
Oh, okay.
Just because with architecture, you'd be talking to the client and they'd be telling you exactly what they want. They sometimes bring inspo pictures and you're like, okay, let me try to bring this specific thing to life.
Yeah.
Um, Whether that's like 3D renderings and design and style like that. And so now I feel like that's something that I kind of focus on with my clients. Cause I'm big with like Pinterest boards. I know that's like kind of a hot take.
I totally
Uh,
am too.
okay, good.
Yeah.
That's like a whole other thing I can get into. But because a lot of the clients will say they'll use the exact same terminology, and sometimes they mean something completely different. And it's not until I see their Pinterest board to where I can
100%.
say exactly like, oh, yes, your timeless candid editorial photos look
Yeah.
very different from this timeless candid person who are just, it's just so different. And I
Yeah.
really feel like being able to communicate a vision is probably what I had kind of taken away rather than just like style.
Yeah, I actually love that for my senior shoots because that's what I mostly do as seniors. I have a
hmm
questionnaire that I send them when they book, and then they fill out their questionnaire, and then I send them back an inspo form, and it asks them
Ooh.
3 questions, and I do it through Honeybook. But you can like put instead of it being a question, like you can put where they can add attachments. So I have like
hmm
3 specific questions, and the last one is like essentially asking them to go find things on Pinterest or TikTok or wherever, friends pictures that they really like. But it allows me to get to see like what it is they're talking about. Like their questionnaire, you're right, like they can have the same words that I'm using, but their definition of that word is completely different. So being
That's
able
so
to
different.
visualize it is so helpful. And I
hmm
just like, I love that you said that because I don't think I've ever talked about that on the podcast, but like it is
hmm
something so helpful to get like inspiration pictures from your clients.
Yeah,
I love it.
exactly. Yeah, that's one of the things that I really wanted to ask you because I feel like I hear it's just been such a hot take where people are like, no Pinterest boards and things like that. And I'm like, everybody, I know this is like also a hot take. Everybody's so different,
Yeah.
especially like couples, seniors, anything like that. And they just have like different ideas and a different vision. And you just, it's better to communicate it with photos, I feel
Yeah.
like, than just words, just to get a better sense of like what exactly they want. Because you kind of
Yeah.
create for yourself, but you also create for them
Well,
mostly.
let's talk about this. Why do you think Pinterest is such a hot take?
I think because a lot of people probably think that you are just copying the exact same pose and the exact same editing style.
Hmm.
But I can look at somebody's, this was actually a reel or a TikTok that I wanted to create, which is just like
Yeah.
showing my clients Pinterest boards and then showing them the photos that we create. Because sometimes it's not just the editing style that they're attracted to. I've had clients where I
Yeah.
think that their vision is probably it's almost a challenge to me because it's just like so beautiful and just a way I hadn't seen um or I hadn't done photos before. So I had clients who would just like share these Pinterest photos that were just like all of her Pinterest photos were framing. So whether that's
Mm.
framing with a
Cool.
tree, framing with a window, things like that. And that's just something that I don't initially go to, which is kind of
Yeah.
shocking coming from an architectural
Totally.
background. But why do you think that people just have such a hot take on that? Because I feel like that's
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I think it's probably because they're they're looking at it of like, oh, the photographer is going to copy all of those photos. But for me, I actually don't look at it as like that when I'm creating Pinterest boards, because even for photo camp, for the styled shoots, I use Pinterest. And I'm looking at it of location, colors, and colors are huge for me.
Colors
Like
are huge.
what colors I want to use in the shoot, and like adding in photos that emulate not just like a photo I want to copy, but it's like the aesthetic of the shoot in general. And clients might not be doing that, but I'm never saying inspo photos that we're going to copy poses from. That's not what I'm saying in my inspo form that I'm like asking them to fill out. It's like, what is an aesthetic that describes you is the first one. And they'll like go find some photos. They might look up, you know, coastal cowgirl aesthetic or something like that, you know, like, cause
that's a cool aesthetic too.
It's a lot of my seniors, man. They're all the coastal cowgirls. It's all about it.
Sounds like so much fun. Mine's just like so frolicking through the field.
Yeah, I have a lot of that too, but definitely last year was like the era of the coastal cowgirls for me. But so lately I've been getting, it also depends like in different seasons, like my seniors for the summer tend to be more the coastal side, right? My seniors for the winter, and obviously it's winter right now, tend to be more of like the European feel. They want downtown photos at a coffee shop, you know, like it's a little bit different based on the season. So anyway, though, based on like their aesthetic and what they view themselves as, it kind of impacts how they want their shoot. And so even for that, I look at the colors, and that doesn't mean that I have to edit the way those photos look. It means that the location I'm picking and how I'm helping them pick out an outfit matches those colors that they feel like are their aesthetic, because their shoot should be unique to them, not just match my style personally as a photographer. It should be a blend of both. So that's kind of what I think about it. But do you agree with that?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I love that you brought up a location, just because that's exactly when I share. I'm like, hey, can you share I could do this whole questionnaire about like, tell me about yourself a little bit more. But also share your Pinterest board, and I can help you pick a location that's in Nashville that's not just the main parks or the Parthenon or things like that. So I really also use it for your aesthetic and kind of what you're going for. I also send out like helpful outfit guides, but then I mostly use it for, okay, let's pick out your locations. Let me figure out who exactly you guys are as a couple, whether that's like in a bar, a hotel, or maybe that is just like frolicking downtown together.
Yeah, I love it. Do you send like a location guide, or do you send specific ideas? You do?
I do. Yeah. I send out mostly after the questionnaire and I review it. I give them 3, and I'm like, hey, here's 3 locations within this area that I feel like it's going to be the perfect fit for you, and here's why. And then I send them my entire location database that I had been building for years since I got here. And it's been so difficult just because obviously a lot of photographers they don't want you to know what's around, which I totally understand to a point. But yeah, I share that with them, and I'm like, hey, if in case you don't know much about these or you're not feeling these, here's everything else you guys can choose from.
Yeah, I love that. I actually haven't been using a guide since I moved to Charleston. We were talking about this earlier before we started recording, but I moved to Charleston 2 years ago. So in Georgia, I had a guide of like all of my locations. In Charleston, the majority of my clients want the same 3 locations, like every time. And they come to me most of the time with the location. So usually what I do is like, you know, I mean, to clarify, like they'll say the beach, right? Well, we have 3 different beaches here. One of them is illegal to shoot at. Can't do any commercial activity. So then it leaves me with 2 options. So I usually give them the idea, like after the questionnaire and with the inspo, like of which one I think would be best for them. But they only have 2 options if they want them. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like there's not that many options. There are some cool spots and stuff that you can pick obviously at them. And I help with that. But I recently have decided that I want to do exactly what you're saying, where like right now I say, hey, here's what I think would be the best option for you. And I give them like, you know, 3 options. And that's normally what I do. But I think I want to start giving them the location guide too, because I think it might be helpful for them. They think they know what they want, but if they can can see more options maybe. And that might help me, in the summer when I'm shooting at the same location 5 times in a week, or whatever it is.
You're tired of going to this beach.
I'm like, I need to get out of my rut.
Exactly.
So that's actually what I'm going to work on. Like literally this week and next week, I'm working on it for my seniors that are booking this year. So I'll let you know how it goes.
Okay. I want to ask then, where are you doing like a PDF, a Canva, a Notion? Because I want to change mine. Mine's currently a Notion right now.
Okay.
And I feel like I've always viewed it from my computer, and I've realized that a lot of people view it from their phone, and it's not as user friendly, especially with the layout that I have right now.
I've actually
I'm looking to change it.
Yeah.
Really?
I've heard that about Notion. Okay, so I haven't started on it yet.
Okay.
So don't hold me to this.
Yeah.
But I think that I'm probably just going to do it through HoneyBook. And my reason for that is because I do everything through HoneyBook. Like every inch of my business is done through HoneyBook. So I feel like for me, it would just make sense for my clients to not be confused when they're looking at things if everything is just like a file through HoneyBook, and it makes it easier for me to be able to go into their project and see everything if I'm not sending it in different ways. But at the same time, if I feel like that aesthetically doesn't make sense for me doing the location guide, I'll probably do a Canva. When I was in Georgia, I used a Canva one and it was fine. But I've evolved. I've grown. HoneyBook's the way to go. We'll see.
HoneyBook is growing too, apparently, with their price increase.
I know. Hot topic, guys.
Another hot topipic.
I know we went from, but honestly, that's what this should be called. Like,
hot topic.
Hot topics with Lisa and Alex.
Yeah.
That is so funny. Well, yeah, I don't know if we want to get into all the HoneyBook drama.
It's fine.
But for those of you guys who, let's do it. Let's get into it a little bit.
All right.
I don't know what your opinion of it is, Lisa, but for me personally, just so I can like put out my opinion and then you can share yours. My business personally is, like I said, everything is on HoneyBook. So for me, it's worth, rather than like changing everything to a different software, to me, it's just worth sticking to it because, man, it would take a lot of work. It would be a huge hassle for me of like years. At this point, I've used HoneyBook for like 6 years. So I have 6 years worth of business stuff and clients to go through and put it in anything else, And then I also feel like, from what I've heard, I've done a couple research things, like HoneyBook just seems to be like doing things the best and ahead of the curve for anyone else. So for me, I don't know. My thing is like, I'll just pay it.
Exactly.
Fine,
Exactly. Because, I'm basically in the same boat.
Okay.
Just because I've used HoneyBook for so long. It was honestly the first software that I had initially started with too. And because they're continuously updating, I also feel like that they're ahead of the curve. They're always going to be updating. They want to improve. They're also listening to our requests a lot of the times. And I just don't think it's worth it to transition on if you already have this. So I don't know if you heard that ding. If you already have this this platform that converts really, really well and documents all of your work and your files, why move it? Why not just say, I'm just going to make a little more money this year? Be a little more optimistic.
Yeah, that's true.
And I'm just going to pay for it. Yeah.
And I think it's hard. Like I actually went on a different podcast with Rachel Traxler and we talked about this. We talked all about the HoneyBook thing. So if you want to listen to it, you totally can. But, but we also talked about how it's really hard because I think some photographers in this felt like wronged by HoneyBook. And that makes total sense. Like I have empathy and compassion for those who really felt that like the rug was kind of pulled out from under them. And change is really hard. And especially when change has to do with your wallet, so like it makes sense that it was hard. I think you just have to analyze it and say like, okay, I might be upset over this. I might be angry over this, but what's the best decision for my business? And if for you, then that is changing it. If for you, like the time is worth the less money spent on something else or whatever, then that's fine for you. But for me with my business, it just makes sense to move forward with HoneyBook. But
yeah. Especially if you don't use any of the features, that's when I kind of understand. Okay, let's transition a little bit here.
yeah. Okay, we are so funny.
We're be-bopping around.
Literally, before we started this podcast, guys, Lisa and I chatted for forever, and then I was like, hold on, we're talking about too good of stuff. Like, I need to stop and we just need to record.
Started with the sledding.
Yeah, it started with us talking about sledding and snowing, so... Hey friends, Alex Blake here. Just wanted to interrupt really quick to invite you to Photo Camp. The 2025 Photo Camp is March 13th through 15th in Folly Beach, South Carolina. If you're a photographer looking to level up, find inspiration, or just build community with other creatives, this is the camp for you. So here's what we can expect. We're going to do 10 styled shoots throughout the weekend so that you can add them to your portfolios. We're also going to stay in a luxury camp house by the beach, and we have 5 educational speakers featuring sessions from Georgia and Micah McMaster, Preston Luke, Shelby Cuenca, Danielle Hickman, and me, Alex Blake. We're also going to take care of all of your meals so that you can focus on learning and creating and connecting, but spots are super limited. We already have some people signed up, and I would love for you to join us. In fact, from now until January 1st, if you mention in the application that you listen to the podcast, I'm going to give you $100 off an all-inclusive pass. So what are you waiting for? Head to photocampinfo.com to apply now, and let's make 2025 your most creative year yet. See you there. Okay, so let's move on to the actual meat of the episode. Even though that was like really good. Maybe we should make this a 2-parter, honestly.
Well, like, yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, okay, so let's go back to like transitioning from being in this stable job into full-time. So tell me a little bit about some of like the challenges that you faced during that and like making the leap to full-time photography.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I feel like there were so many challenges. The biggest one for me, my goodness. I think it was, we were actually talking about this a little bit before, but it was like the self-doubt of myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just because I wasn't sure if I would be able to do it. A lot of the times other people, and I don't know if you had gotten this whenever you were transitioning into full time, but a lot of people would just kind of say, oh, what a fun hobby.
Yeah.
You know, what do you really do? And it was also very difficult when I would be talking to new people, and they, even now when I would talk about, oh, photography, this and that, and maybe I would bring up my passive like architecture, they would light up, and kind of treat me a little bit different when I would talk a little bit more about architecture and that kind of thing, just because I think at the time, or at least the people that I was talking to, they had kind of just viewed that as a little bit more prestigious. I don't view it as, and they just kind of have a different idea of what photography is versus what architecture is. And let me tell you, if you are considering going into architecture, please talk to me and let me almost talk you out of it, or just let you know that it's very, very different, which a lot of things are, from school versus what is going to be in real life. So I think for me, it was more of an internal battle with myself and trying to become okay with, okay, I can call myself a photographer now. I don't have to keep holding on to architecture and kind of what this other thing was.
Yeah. That's such an interesting topic, because I do think that's something that I would bet a lot of photographers deal with, is like people looking at photography as not successful, or almost not as smart.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes. I was trying not to say that.
Yeah.
But that is actually exactly what I would feel when I would be talking to these people. They'd be like, oh yeah, photography, just because and maybe you can relate this with
totally
kind of what your husband would deal with, but they would say, oh, photography, Nashville, music, Nashville. And they would kind of look at you in a little bit of a different light. And then when you bring up, oh, well, I actually studied architecture and math and like all this other stuff, it would just be so different.
Yeah. And I think there's probably a lot of things in the creative world that feel that way. But being creative is a way of being smart. You
Oh
know, like,
yeah. Oh
like
yeah.
there are so many like mathematically smart people or intellectually smart people who
Mm-hmm.
could never do what a creative does because creatives are smart in their own way. You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
like I might not be able to do the biggest math problem in the room. Like I
Who needs to?
might not even be able to do the smallest math problem in the room.
We don't need that.
But what I can do is bring my own creativity to the table and I can see
Mm-hmm.
things that no one else can see because of the way my brain functions. And that's a beautiful thing. Then on the
Mm-hmm.
flip side too, it's not just having an eye for something, taking clicks, you know, like clicking your finger and then like editing it to be pretty. It's running a business. And when you run your own business, you have to be smart in a lot of different areas. Like
Oh yeah.
to be
Oh yeah.
entrepreneurial and to do this all on our own, like there should be so much pride in that too, because it is such a beautiful thing that we get to do, and it's like it's a humbling thing because there's a lot of
Oh
things we have
yeah.
to learn, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same
Mm-hmm.
time, like people might not understand that side of it. It doesn't really matter though because your job is not to please them,
Exactly.
you know.
And that is exactly, I was actually talking about this in therapy quite a bit.
Love it.
Just
We love
trying to,
therapy.
exactly, yeah, I've been in therapy for almost a year now. I think maybe
Yes,
just over a year.
that's
And it's
amazing.
really just trying to build confidence within yourself of, yes, I can do it. Because the first step is obviously going to be, and maybe we can talk about it later, the financial and the literal sense of
Yeah.
making the jump. But another portion is just like you need to be confident in yourself, and you're gonna need that push for a
Yeah.
lot longer than just like, oh, I'm about to quit my job.
Yeah, that's really good. What do you feel like is one thing you wish you would have known stepping into full time? Sorry, I'm asking you the
Uh,
hard questions right now.
let me think back into my therapy days. The biggest thing I feel like I wish I would have known would probably be that I that it and maybe this sounds like slightly woohoo, but it doesn't have to be perfect. It
Hmm.
never has to be perfect. You just need to start and keep moving forward, and perfect does not mean progress. You can just still have progress within your business and as a business owner, which I would also just kind of say that I would prefer is just not is to kind of just fail, have little
Yeah.
failures, learn, grow, and then continue on. I'm doing like a little road here.
Yeah.
And then just kind of continue on and keep moving forward, which is just like I just wish I would have known that, okay, to start this, I don't need to have the perfect Instagram post or the perfect
Mhm.
business and do everything exactly as it should be.
Yeah.
Um, and I should just keep getting started and just keep moving forward, really.
That's so good. So before we started recording, guys, Lisa actually asked me, we were talking about social media, and she was like, how do you post every day? And we were
Goodness,
talking
yes.
about how like self-doubt is really hard because I mean, you can kind of share a little bit, but really what I was going to say with this is like, you need to preach back to yourself everything you just said.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I
you don't have to
know.
be perfect, Lisa.
It's
So
so
to
hard.
tell everybody like what it is that you were talking about with social media and like posting and how you're feeling.
It is okay. For one, I was just saying it is so hard for me to post anything really because I would say, okay, I would in my head I'd be like, is this a great photo? Is this does it story tell enough? Will I also I like to hop on trends. I think trends are important to the
Yeah.
industry. Is this trendy? Is it too trendy? Does it speak to me? And then another really big thing that I was complimenting Alex on is that she has this amazing ability just to be so authentically herself and really showcase herself. And that is just one thing that I have been struggling with just because I don't know how to just post myself on
Yeah.
social media. I keep it very much aligned with um, lots of my couples, and that is just easy peasy for me.
Yeah.
So I'd love to ask you, how are you so able to just show up?
Yeah.
If that
So
makes
it's
sense.
so this is kind of what I was saying. So guys, I literally was like, okay, we need to stop and we need to record this. And this is why we started recording today.
Yeah.
But I think for me, honestly, like a lot of it has come from a lot of growth because I was very afraid to share my normal life before. And I would say over the last like 2 years, maybe year and a half even, I've like really grown and just very authentically showing up online and not caring. Like I used to have to feel like I needed, and this was kind of the era and the time for this, but I really used to feel like I needed like an Instagram filter over myself if I didn't have makeup on. You know, and I just wasn't going to show up if it was an editing day on I wasn't going to show up on Instagram or TikTok or whatever if it was an editing day because I was in sweats and I was editing in bed, you know, like, and that's like real. Like, exactly. I have a blanket on right now. Like I'm cozy and it's fine. And I'm doing this podcast that's going to be on YouTube, you know, but I think the thing that people crave so much and the thing that I crave so much is to stop comparing myself to people. And that happens when people are real and when they're not aesthetically showing up perfect all the time. So I want to be that for people where I need that in my own life. You know what I mean? So I think there were some people that were only aesthetically showing up and I looked up to them, but it became a comparison thing in my mind on accident. And so I ended up like having to unfollow them. And I now follow them back because I'm out of that place. But for that season, I was like, I can't do this. And so for my own, like my own confidence, my own mental health, whatever you want to call it, I'm going to just unfollow them for a season, find my own path, show up very real for my audience. Like, and do and say things. And like, I put things that are so embarrassing on my reels to me, like the way
it's so great. Funny. It's so good.
Well, thank you. But for me, I listen to some of my things or like I say certain things in sessions and because we do behind the scenes, because we're photographers, I have to hear it back. And it's like, I cringe at myself. I think my voice is so nasally. Sometimes I'm like, why does it sound like this? You know, but I want to share those things because not only does it push my business forward, like that's just a true thing of social media, the more we share, but it also pushes, I think, like just a realness forward where like I want to be authentically friends with people. I don't just want it to be like, you know, the perfect aesthetic Instagram me. You know what I mean? And I think like, with makeup and the way that I talk and stuff, like it's okay that I say, it's okay. Like, it's fine. You know, it's okay that I forgot my word there and I didn't know what I was saying, like whatever it is, you know, but I think that also just going back to like the business side of things, for me, I found that my behind the scene videos showcase my personality more and it allows seniors, for me specifically, to really feel comfortable and like they know me before the session ever starts. So there's an instant like comfort that I used to have to fight for in a session to get to know, and they had to get to know me because they were only looking at pictures of other seniors and they knew that they liked that work, which is why they booked me, but they didn't know me. And now I start like on a higher ground in my senior sessions because they feel like they know me already. So that's kind of my whole spiel.
No, I think that's amazing. I want to speak on, the comparison game a little bit more, just because that was exactly something that I was struggling with, especially when I was first starting out. I followed what I had thought was all the top, coolest, most beautiful photoed photographers in my area, and every single time I would just, and then they had years on me, and I would just compare myself, and there was a time where I had not for any bad blood or anything, but like I had to unfollow them because I just could not stop thinking about, oh, my work's not good enough. Now again, like you, I follow them now. But it takes a lot of growth, especially I feel like as a person and as like creating for yourself and for your clients to be able to just kind of get over that hump. Yeah. Because I feel like a lot of people and everybody kind of goes through the exact same thing.
Yeah. I do think like a practical tip now that I'm thinking about it, when I first started on this journey of like really wanting to just like share more about myself, was I did, my friend Preston came to town one time just to visit me and Zach. And whenever Preston is here, it is like content overload. Like his like motto is everything is content. So he's like, Alex, we're doing a shoot every day and we're doing headshots of each other. And he always laughs at me because he takes pictures all the time. And I'm like, anytime Preston is here, I'm like, okay, it's pictures for like the next year for me. Like I can utilize these pictures for the next year. Yes. But like, sharing, like doing a photo shoot where maybe it's like a whole day of a photo shoot for you. Maybe it's a couple hours and you go to a couple different locations and you bring a couple different outfits and you take some photos with your camera and some photos without your camera, right? Like holding your camera, sorry, to clarify. And,
how do you do that?
you do need a camera to take photos.
Yeah.
But anyway, and what you do is utilize that when you're sharing about your life. So on your stories, where naturally, I usually take like a selfie, I'll do like a 0.5 or something. That's kind of like the classic thing that I'll do. And I'll say like, okay, here's what I'm doing this Monday. And it's a picture of me actually doing whatever I'm doing this Monday, right? But before I got to this place where I was like comfortable showing up however I look, whatever, I used to just post a picture of like from one of those times with Preston where he had taken my picture or whatever. And it was a picture of me. And I would do the same thing. Here's what I'm doing this Monday. But it was a picture of myself. So people were able to at least connect to my face. And that's a really good like beginning point. Take some branding photos and start with just those and then work your way into the selfies or whatever you want to do. But that might be a good one to think about.
I know. I think that's great. You'll start finally seeing some pictures of myself because I feel like I did a workshop and I loved all the girls that had went there. And I think everybody was trying to get a feel for everybody. So everybody was looking through all the Instagrams and everything like that.
Yeah.
And they're like, Lisa, you haven't posted a picture of yourself in like 3 years. What are you doing?
And you're like, I know.
I'm sorry. I can't.
Okay. Well, you're going to come to photo camp and we're going to get you some pictures of yourself and you can post
BTS.
them.
Yeah.
I love it.
Try my best.
Yeah. I really think it is so important though for people to see our faces, to be able to trust us. And people want to hear about your life, Lisa. Like people want to know you.
Yeah. And
I want to know you.
Hard. I want
if there's one, it's me. So funny. Okay. Well, going back to like, obviously we've talked a lot about, I think, the emotional side of transitioning from this like job, corporate job to the full-time photography world. What did you do, not just to prepare emotionally, but to prepare financially for going full-time?
Yeah, that was a really big deal for me. Just because I didn't grow up with like all of the things and like a huge safety net or anything like that. So for me, it was, I listened to a lot of Dave Ramsey.
Love it. Me and my husband are big Dave Ramsey people.
Amazing. Great guy.
He's in Nashville, isn't he?
He is. He's in Brentwood. Yeah. Okay, I drive by. Sometimes you're right. You're not from here. But it's like 20, 30 minutes south of Nashville.
Cool.
Very, very close. But I kind of listened to him and I've read a couple books, but mostly just saving 3 months of rent. And I want, if I'm speaking to anybody, I want to not just hit the lower end, but I want to set a really, really high goal just so I can so I can be comfortable.
Yeah.
So 3 months, maybe even 4. And then the other big thing that I had done before I ended up submitting my not my resume, but quitting, was making sure that I had enough work lined up. So what I do, and I don't know what you personally do for your shoots, but after I book a call and we get a contract signed, I do a 30% deposit. And then I think at the time I had also done payments for a lot of my clients. So we did either 4 to 6 months, or installments of payments immediately following. So I would get that deposit, I put it into the savings. And then immediately after that, I would say, okay, now I have $500-$400 going on for the next 4 to 6 months. Okay. So now I just need to book a couple more. And so then I would have that 30% deposit and then the 4 to 6 months would just kind of stacked up. Cool. And so that way I kind of knew going into summer, spring, fall, winter that I had my huge safety net of just my regular expenses. Yeah. And now I have more of like, I have work lined up, which is really great. I also tried to strategically quit at a good time. Yeah. So I didn't quit and maybe a good time to me is maybe not a good time to everybody else. But for me, I quit just before all of my spring weddings. That way I knew I had, right. Yeah. That way I knew I had all of I had all the payment plans that were going to be set up, the deposits. And then I also had lots of content that I was going to be able to share with everybody. And to me that, and it was also super helpful that it had brought in lots of
Yeah.
new clients.
Yeah.
So those were just like the big key factors
Yeah.
that I had done to set myself up financially.
I love that. I definitely love the 3-month rule. For that, I do the same thing where I like have set aside money just in case slow season hits. I never have a time because I don't know if everybody does this, and I don't think I've talked about this on the podcast, but for me, I do like I pay myself the same amount every 2 weeks. So my bank account for my business, my bank account for my personal, they're separate, and my business has like months saved up just in case I'm not able to pay myself from the like, funds that are coming in. Thankfully, I haven't gotten to that place, but if it ever does, it's the safety net there, where like, okay, that 2-week mark comes and it's time to pay myself. Oh no, I have $0 in the bank, like you never know. So you just want to be prepared for that. So I love that. Okay. We are coming up on the like 45-minute mark. So we need to wrap this up, but do you have any advice for anyone who might be thinking about going full time?
Confidence. It's totally fine. You can do it. I promise you can, as long as you just prepare. And one of the biggest things that I feel like helped me was just somebody had told me this, and it was just like, start now, pivot later. You just need to start immediately. It doesn't matter who's going to be seeing and maybe I need to preach this to myself. It doesn't matter who's going to be seeing yourself on social media. Just start your Instagram account. You don't just keep telling yourself, I'm a photographer, I can do this. And have a plan going into it. Not just the motivation behind it, but always start now, pivot later is probably my biggest piece of advice.
I love that. I think it's so, so good. And I think just to add to that too, have good community around you. Before we started this podcast, Lisa was talking about like her friends agreeing with something that I said. I don't remember, but just like having those friends around you that are pouring into you and encouraging you, and not just you telling yourself in your head that you're a photographer, but them telling you that you're a photographer too. I think is so important. So I love that. Well, it has been such a joy to talk with you, Lisa. I'm so glad we're friends now. Like I want to come to Nashville and hang out with you.
Oh, you should. I'll show you a good time out here.
Okay, perfect. Okay, tell everyone where they can find you and follow you.
You guys can find me at lrow.photography on Instagram and now TikTok. I just made a TikTok too.
What? In this crazy TikTok season?
I know. I just made it like a month or two ago before the whole thing went down. Yeah.
Yes. Well, go find Lisa, guys. Go follow her. She really is amazing. Her style is beautiful. I promise you won't regret getting to see her amazing work, but also just getting to like follow along in her journey. So I am so excited. Just as a quick plug, because I always have to plug it. Photo Camp is coming up March 13th through 15th in 2025 in Folly Beach, South Carolina. We have 5 educational speakers, 10 styled shoots, and we're all in a luxury camp house by the beach. Applications are open now, but not for long. They're open for like the next week. So you guys got to get on that if you want to come. We have a couple spots more left, but only a couple. So sign up now. Okay. I will see you guys next Thursday. Love you all. Bye.
Let's